Hey, you guys, we're back again. Guess what? Samantha Bryant is back in the studio with me again today. I'm so excited. Indie reads aloud. We love indie authors and we have so much fun. I'm starting to think that maybe I should record the green room and then like put it out on Patreon or something because we have more fun in the green room.
That's true.
We should be getting paid for our green room time. So, welcome back, Samantha. I'm so glad you decided to come back.
Oh, I had a great time. Of course, I'll come back.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And I know you have a new book coming out, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but I'm super excited because that means I get to have you back more. See, it's all very selfish on my part. 100%.
That's the kind of selfishness I'll take. That's
Okay.
good. Yeah.
All right. So today, Samantha is going to read Through Thick and Thin. This is a menopausal superhero short story collection, which in itself is a mouthful. But
Yes, yes.
if you've been here for our other episodes of Samantha's amazing superhero book and that whole series, it's so much fun. And I think you do such a great job with it.
Well, thank you.
It's wow, just super super. So I'm wondering, so this one is a collection of short stories, and I'm wondering which you wrote first. Did you write the novels first, the short stories first? Did the short stories come to you in concert with the novels at various stages? How did these short stories come into being?
So when I first started working on the series, in the first book, Going Through the Change, I did have a short story version of something that ended up being a chapter in that. So I guess the very first Menopausal Superheroes was a short story called Patricia Saves the Beauty Queen.
Okay.
But Patricia Saves the Beauty Queen is not in this collection because it later became a chapter in the novel, right?
And why be redundant?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the short stories in here came mostly like while I was writing the novels. I also wrote the short stories. A couple of them were because I had an anthology opportunity to write for like a tie-in thing,
Got
and
it.
a couple of them were just like I want to tell this bit of the menopausal superheroes, but it does not fit in the novels. And so I wrote a little short story. I've written some of them to just give as like newsletter presents to the people who
Sure.
subscribe to my newsletter.
Yeah, absolutely. We love those
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we
It's
know
like
nobody else
subscribe and you
gets
get
them.
an extra story.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because well, and we know nobody else gets them. They're just for us. So
right.
we love those.
Yeah.
Um, so do you have any short stories that actually became a full-fledged novel?
Mm, Not so far, although I do have, it's not a menopausal superhero short story, but I do have a short story called Suburban Blight that really wants to be a young adult series of novels.
Oh,
I keep
fun.
I keep trying to shove it back in the box and make it stay a short story, but it wants to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
bigger. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how creativity works that way? It's so
Yeah.
belligerent. So
Yes.
belligerent.
I think my brain forgets that who's in charge here.
Well, yeah, I think it's a nice mixture of intellect and creativity vying for attention,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So just because I have to, because we've done it throughout, and I just love how you write these. I'm going to start with the first little bit from the back cover, which says, hidden in the space between chapters lurk other stories. What came before and after, and meanwhile. And the other sides of the stories, including the part our heroines don't know. This collection peeks around those corners of the menopausal superhero series. And there's more to the synopsis, but I love this first paragraph because it's got so much in it. I, I mean, you're whetting my appetite and making me crazy with intrigue, and I just think it's fantastic.
Oh.
So you are one of the few people I've met who has mastered the art of the dreaded synopsis.
Well, it does give me conniptions when I'm trying to write them. And
See, and you know words, so conniptions, good.
but yeah, they're so important because this back of the book language helps people know whether this is a book for them or not. right?
Absolutely.
And so it has to capture the tone and build interest and
Well,
but
and
sometimes I think they're harder to write than the books are though.
oh, I agree, 100%. That's why we call them dreaded.
Yeah,
Also, they are where your marketing platform begins.
right.
So they're super important for that reason. If we have other authors paying attention, yeah, that first paragraph of your back cover synopsis is your marketing platform. So
It is absolutely.
be careful with it. I'm super excited. One of my failings in life is that I do not hold back on excitement, and it tends to like catch a bunch of people off guard. And I apologize for those of you that are driving and I'm startling you with my excitement, but it's all genuine, I promise. Through thick and thin. Would you read a little bit for us, pretty please?
Absolutely.
When you're ready, take the microphone. It's all yours.
All right, so this is a collection of short stories, as we discussed, and I'm going to read from the first story in the collection, which is called "Coming Out as Leonel." And each story starts with a little note from the author that kind of explains why this story, where it fits in the universe, and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to read the note and then part of the story. Okay, so note from the author. When Linda Alvarez took that fateful shower in the first chapter of Going Through the Change, and his journey to become Leonel Fuerte Alvarez began, I knew he could not keep this secret from his family and friends. His circle was too tight for that. So this story imagines the moment when Linda, or Leonel, has to reveal himself to his best friend and convince her that he's still the same person beneath the skin. Coming out is always tricky, no matter what you're confessing. I'm a romantic at heart, and I wanted to write a hero who gets to keep their circle around them. Not without tension, of course. I got tired of the heroism is a lonely road trope that sees family and friends as liabilities only in heroic life. So Leonel, who has always taken strength from his friends and families, will continue to do so. Okay, so here's the story, or at least the beginning of it. Coming out as Leonel. David Alvarez looked nervous, but Marisol didn't feel sorry for him. Clearly, the man was up to something. It had been weeks since anyone had seen his wife, Linda, and the explanation that made the most sense was that David had done something to her. Marisol no longer believed Linda had fallen ill or that she'd gone on a trip. She hadn't really believed it even then. Linda told her everything. Marisol would have known if her best friend decided to leave town. When he called this little meeting of Linda's neighborhood friends, Marisol expected him to try to paint himself in the most positive light possible and to make the trouble, whatever it was, sound like Linda's fault. But she never could have guessed this insane angle. He really expected them to believe that this stranger, this man that David had brought into their midst was Linda, somehow transformed? You've got to be kidding. The man who claimed to be Linda Alvarez shook his head. I know it's hard to believe, Marisol, but it's true. He peered into her face beseechingly, his soft brown eyes full of sadness. Marisol met the gaze of the other neighborhood women seated on the sofas and chairs, her own doubts mirrored in their faces. Anna's usually soft expression molded into something like concrete, and her arms crossed over her ample chest. She sounded like she'd swallowed something disgusting when she spoke, her voice tightly controlled, with the willpower it took to contain her rage. David, if this is some kind of joke, it's in very poor taste. David stepped away from the doorway where he'd retreated after introducing this stranger. It's no joke. Es mi amor, es linda. Marisol stood. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. You really expect me to believe that this, she gestured at the man perched at the front of the large green chair across from her, this man is your wife. How can I prove it to you? The stranger asked, his hands clasped demurely between his knees. None of the women answered. Anna scowled. Bet stared at her own shoes and chewed a thumbnail. Jean looked as if she might cry. The man appeared a little teary-eyed himself. We've been friends for almost 20 years, Marisol, he said. There has to be a way to make you understand. Everyone turned to her. Marisol wasn't the oldest woman in the room, but she had always been the leader of their group, the one who arranged block sales and summer pool parties and organized the covered dish sign up whenever a family needed help. It made sense that the women of the neighborhood would look to her to settle this, but she had no idea what to do. The story David and this man had brought them was beyond preposterous. She couldn't imagine what could motivate David, who she had always known to be honest and reasonable, to come to them with a story about how his wife had been transformed into a man by soap. Things like that simply did not happen. Marisol turned to David. What really happened, David? Where's Linda? Her heart raced as her imagination ran scenario after scenario that could explain this situation. None of the stories ended well for Linda. Was David delusional? On drugs? Under the influence of some kind of con? Cheating on Linda with a man? Where is Linda? She asked again, louder, fighting to keep the hysteria out of her voice. When they talked about these kinds of things on the news, the friends never suspected a thing. They always described the criminal as an ordinary man, kind to animals and children. No one ever said they got the heebie-jeebies every time he came into the room. Had they been blind to a wolf within their midst? I am still Linda, the man said, standing and laying a hand on Marisol's shoulder. She shrugged it off violently, fighting an urge to rub the spot where he had touched her. He sighed and ran a hand through his hair, tucked the long strands behind his ears, then tugged on the ends. Marisol gasped, putting a hand to her mouth. It was a familiar gesture, one she knew from long, heartfelt talks with her friend. It couldn't be. Anna bolted from her chair, unable to contain her anger any longer. She staggered towards David, violence crackling from her like summer lightning, palpable and dangerous. If you've done something to hurt Linda. The strange man leaped between Anna and David, a human shield, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender. Anna, you can't think my husband would hurt me. You know he's never raised a hand against me or our daughters. David is a good man. Anna didn't look convinced. She closed and opened the fist at her sides. She and the strange man stared into each other's eyes, neither backing down. David put a hand on the arm of the man protecting him, peering at Marisol over his shoulder. The strange man put his hand over David's and gently squeezed. The tenderness of the touch spoke of physical familiarity between the two men. Marisol felt sick. She sank into the chair and let her head fall into her hands. After a minute or so of tense silence, she spoke quietly. Okay, if you're Linda, you should be able to prove it. Tell me something only she would know. The man smiled. He was gorgeous when he smiled, like a movie star. Antonio Banderas with the muscles of Dwayne Johnson. It did not make her want to trust him. With an apologetic nod to Anna, who still scowled at the two men, the stranger crossed the room in two long strides and knelt at Marisol's feet, taking her hands in his. His hands were large, but the nails were carefully manicured and might even have sported a coat of clear polish. When David and I moved here, you were the first one to welcome us. You brought us a basket filled with cookies you and your daughters had made. They were beautiful, but terrible. David chipped a tooth trying to eat one. I still have the basket. I think of you whenever I use it. That's not good enough, Anna interrupted. David could have told you that. He's trying to make us accept his gigolo by giving him stories to use against us. David's face turned scarlet with embarrassment. The man who claimed to be Linda stood and returned to Anna. All the women watched, their faces a panorama of dismay. Anna, when your sister was in the hospital, I picked up your children from school every day. They ate dinner with our family every night for months. When she finally came back home from the hospital, I had to teach you how to make enchiladas the way I do because they had become Shanice's favorite food. The man turned to the other women in the room, recounting stories and experiences they'd shared, like the time Linda would have gotten a speeding ticket on the way back from the beach if Bet hadn't flirted her way out of it for them, like the time Jean lost her grocery money in Las Vegas and the neighborhood took up a collection to keep her husband from finding out, Or the time Rose's husband had gotten drunk and fallen off the back deck, then punched David when he tried to help, giving him a huge shiner. With each story, another set of eyes grew wide. They were all thinking it, but Marisol asked it aloud first. Linda, is it really you? And that's where I'll stop. Of course, there's still more to this story.
Gosh, hate it when you stop in the middle like that. That's super fun. So, is Linda the first one to have this revelation with her friends? Is she the first one who went through the change?
Yes, in the first chapter of the first book, Linda has the change. And I didn't really write her neighborhood friends into the story in that first novel because there was already a lot in that
Yeah.
novel. You know,
Yeah.
you can't tell everything. But
Sure.
but I knew that she had a close-knit group of friends and that the fact that she'd been transformed into a man was not going to go unnoticed.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, are there other short stories about the rest of the groups coming out?
Not so far.
Okay.
Um, for some of them got their kind of coming out moment in the novels. So
Okay.
so they don't really need a separate story for that.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. But no, the other stories feature some of the other heroes, but not really as coming out stories.
Got it. Okay. So, what made you decide out of your whole cast of characters? And I know we talked before that you kind of half pants your way through these.
Yes.
So, out of all your cast of characters, what made you decide that Linda was going to be the first one to be affected by this change?
In my first draft, she wasn't.
Okay.
I actually started with Helen, who's the character who eventually becomes able to wield fire. And in
Okay.
Helen's first chapter, she burns down her apartment, finding that out.
That's not a great way to discover a new gift.
No, no.
Yeah.
So that was initially my first chapter. But then just as I got towards the end of the book, I started to feel that that wasn't the right place to start. That it was off tone for
Sure.
the tone I wanted. And so I had also written the chapter where Linda transforms. And as I talked it through with my critique group and figured it out, it just felt like that was the one that should be first.
I
Just like
find it
the gut check.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, I find it fascinating because this happens to me too. So often, my books don't actually start until chapter 3, but I need my editor to point that out to me.
Right.
I
And you
can't
had to
always.
write the first two chapters to be able to write the third chapter.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
sometimes those chapters are still in the book, or parts of them are someplace,
Yep.
but they're not the first
Not in the
chapter
beginning.
anymore. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wacky world we live in. Holy
Yeah.
moly.
Yeah.
So I teased at the beginning that you have a new book coming out shortly. And
Mhm.
this is a complete, I just want you to like give us a little bit. This is a completely different novel. It's not part of this series. This is a new romance.
Yes. Yeah. My new project, once I finished the Menopausal Superhero series, I really needed like I'd been working on that for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And I wrote some short stories at the same time, but really my focus was on just that series because
Okay.
if I'm not strict with my brain, she wanders off.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes.
And so I needed like total new project energy, to jump into. I didn't want to jump into something I'd started and dropped. I wanted
Sure.
something new. And so yeah, I came up with the idea that I was going to write Gen X romances, meaning
Fun.
that the people in the stories falling in love are of Generation X, which means that they're somewhere between their late 40s and 60 years old. And I know from my own experience, and my friends in my life and everything that sometimes romance does find you at that point of your life, or
Sure.
another romance if something happened to your first romance. And
Right.
and I don't feel like that gets much attention. It's not a story that you see
No,
much.
I agree. I agree. I think it's cool that you're writing it. I'm really excited to
Yeah.
see when it comes out. Any idea when we can expect to see it on shelves?
Yeah, I'm doing this one as an all indie project, which means it's all up to me. And
Fantastic.
so God willing and the creek don't rise, I am planning to bring it out for my birthday, which is in April of 2026.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Thank you so much for coming on the show again. I know that you have more to share with us and you'll be back. So I'm really, really grateful. Thank you.
I
Thank you.
wanted to pop in just to mention that,
Oh,
this
yeah, we
collection of
talked
stories,
about that in the green room. And of course,
yeah,
I forgot.
Through Thick and Thin is the collection of short stories. But the collection of short stories is also inside another collection, Agents of Change, which gives you all the short stories and a couple of novellas from the series in a single volume. So
Yeah, yeah.
if you're a big fan, you might want the volume that has all of them in it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and my error completely. The reason that we're not doing a separate episode on that is because it is kind of like a compilation. It is kind of
Right.
like an omnibus. So it would be
Yeah, there's
redundant
nothing in this one that is not somewhere else. It
elsewhere.
just puts them
Right.
all together in one book. So
I
yeah,
love I love when authors do omnibus editions like that because then I can create consolidated space on my bookshelf.
right. Yeah,
Thanks so much for coming on this show, and I'll look for you again.
absolutely.
Thank you.